What is wrong with Jaguar I-Pace? Right here, it's a beautiful car and it's been out for almost 9, 10 months now, and things are not going the way that I thought they would be going. I don't think they're going the way that Jaguar thought they would going. And I gotta tell you, I'm not even baffled by the Jaguar sales. I'm just wondering, are people not ready for electric cars unless it's Tesla? So I really don't know the answer. However, we're in luck because Tom Moloughney of InsideEVs is here to answer the question. He actually test drove one a couple of months, 2, 3 months ago, and he has a pretty good idea what is going on. Of course, this is his regular weekly segment plugged in with Tom Moloughney. So he's going to be here in just 1 second and enlighten at least me, but hopefully you as well. All right, let's get going. Welcome to E4Electric, your number one source of unbiased electric car news. If this is your first time here, go ahead and click on that subscribe button down there so you don't miss anything moving forward. Just like I said, Tom is going to be here in just 1 second. I don't know how I have not driven an I-Pace yet. Usually after a few months or even before a release or a launch, a brand would let journalists drive the car. Somehow I was scheduled to drive it, and then they canceled it, and now I haven't. So I don't know. So I'm going to rely on Tom on this. There are quite a few reviews of an I-Pace of people who've driven it out there, and the sales are actually quite interesting. The InsideEVs track monthly sales, and so far they look okay. I mean, they're not very impressive just because you have to understand that Jaguar does not sell a lot of cars anyway, but in the United States they don't sell that many. So far they sold a little over 1,300 of I-Pace SUVs, but globally they're at about 9,000. So it's actually not that bad. I believe it's about 10% of their entire sales. Again, Jaguar is not even Tesla. They don't sell that many cars. So these are not bad numbers, but at the same time, they're not going up. I don't hear people talking about it. My Jaguar I-Pace Facebook group is the least active one out there, so maybe the interest is really not there. So something's up. Something is up. At first, I thought I was going to get the I-Pace when it came out at the end of the last year. Then I really, I gotta tell you, I know this is first world problems, but I really didn't like the small wheels. So I was like, I don't know. And then lately, I've been kind of very interested in it again. Now, here's an interesting number that's coming out, and the InsideEV has already reported on this, is that there is enough of Jaguar I-Pace in the US dealership inventory to last for 6 months if the sales are going the same way. So they're just sitting out there, and you can get pretty decent discounts. I've heard, you can lower the price all the way to like 60,000 after the incentives, but still nothing. All right. Anyway, let's get Tom in here, and he'll definitely shine some light on this. Before that, of course, a quick reminder that this video and this channel is sponsored by Byton, with another electric SUV coming to the US and Europe at the end of the next year, starting at only $45,000. That's before the incentives. So go ahead and reserve one. It takes about a minute of your time, but most importantly, $0 down. You put nothing down. So go to the description of this video and reserve your Byton today. All right, without further ado, let's talk to Tom so he can give us some insight. Tom, how are you doing, my friend?
Great, Alex. How's it going?
It's going all right. Listen, normally when we talk, I feel like I have a decent knowledge of what's happening with the topic. But with this one, I don't understand. I mean, you've heard me just say, right? And you've seen the article in InsideEVs that you contribute to, is that the numbers are okay, but there's so many of them sitting at the parking lots, at the warehouses of Jaguar dealerships. Let's just start with the first one. What do you think about the sales, global and the United States? Are they all right? Are they? I mean, are they low? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think globally, Jaguar's probably hitting or coming very close to their expectations. As you mentioned earlier, they sold more than 9,000 I-Paces through the first 6 months of the year. Now 7 months is in the books, and I'm sure that they've sold close to 10,000, if not more, in the first 7 months. So globally, I think that Jaguar is not disappointed in their sales. I wouldn't think that they are. In the U.S., I think they are because the U.S. iPace sales has been lagging behind how well the car is doing over in Europe. As you mentioned earlier, they're only averaging about 220 iPaces per month. Now that sounds really, really paltry, but then you also mentioned that point but Jaguar doesn't sell a lot of cars in the U.S., which is true. They're a very small niche brand here in the U.S. In fact, Jaguar has, I think, slightly less than 200 dealers in the entire country, and that's not a lot of dealerships. So Jaguar just doesn't sell a lot of cars in the U.S. You had mentioned that the iPace sales were 10%. I think it's a little higher. I think it's closer to 15%, at least 12 or 13% of their U.S. sales. So when you put it in that perspective, it's pulling its weight in the Jaguar brand. Considering the SUVs, the E-Pace and the F-Pace are probably going to be the most popular in the U.S. Here, we love the SUVs. The I-Pace isn't an SUV. I know you mentioned it. You called it that before. It's a crossover at best. It's slightly bigger than my Model 3. And I think when Tesla comes out with the Y, it's probably going to be the same size. It might even have more interior volume than the I-Pace. So, what is it? Where does it fit in the market? It's a crossover, but it's a small crossover, very low roof line for a crossover. It doesn't have a tremendous amount of cargo space. It's got adequate space. I mean, it definitely can do the trick for most people, but it's not an SUV. You can't put it next to the Audi e-tron and say, oh, these are basically the same car. Why is Audi selling 2 or 3 times as many cars as Jaguar is? It's the e-tron has a lot more versatility. It has a lot more cargo, a lot more interior room, and it's really an SUV, which the I-Pace isn't.
Well, so then, why did Jaguar, I believe it was even before the release this promotional video trying to race the Tesla Model X, which is a much bigger car, and they were trying to go after that same audience. What are you saying they're completely out of, in 2 different categories, or do you think that the audience is relatively similar?
Well, let me ask you this. Why is Audi now using superchargers in their advertisements for the e-tron? It's because everybody recognizes Tesla's the leader. So they want to have their car in their commercial next to a Tesla or next to a Tesla charging station. And that shows that, or they're trying to prove that, hey, we're legitimate. We're as good as Tesla. Look at what we're doing here. So, the fact that, Jaguar rolled up a Model X, I think it was the base X. It wasn't a performance one, and did a little bit of a drag race, was just kind of to say, hey, look, this is fast and sporty and desirable also. But they didn't, show all the other metrics that where the Model X is has a lot more room, is a lot bigger than the I-Pace. And listen, don't get me wrong, I really like the I-Pace. I've had extended time driving them. I drove one of the first I-Pace deliveries in the U.S. A good friend of mine, there it is up on the screen now, that blue one there out in California. Good friend of mine, John Hyam, picked one up. He was one of the first people in the country to get it, and he literally let me drive it the second day that he owned it. And we took it on like a 200 or 300 mile, I can't remember, road trip. And so I was able to drive it way back when the I-Pace first came out. And I actually absolutely loved it. It drives fantastic. The interior is beautiful. You got a shot there. Really, really super comfortable seats, beautiful interior, really well laid out, in my opinion, nimble handling. If you want to start knocking it, you say, it's not very efficient car. As a matter of fact, InsideEVs, we did a chart with efficiency, which you have up there now. And I don't know if you could scroll down my screen, I can't see it. Yeah, down to the bottom. Only the e-tron was less efficient for electric vehicles. So the iPace isn't a very efficient vehicle. It's got a large battery. It still only goes. It's EPA rated, I think, 234 miles per charge. I barely got over 200 miles per charge on my driving with it. And of course, I had a little bit of a heavy foot, but still with that size battery, you would expect to easily get 200 miles of range in warm weather, which it was when I was driving it. And I mean, my Model 3, for instance, has a much smaller battery, and I can get at least 100 miles more range than what the iPace offers. So that's not just 5 or 10 miles. We're talking about 100 miles more. That makes a difference, especially for first-time electric car buyers that are really concerned about range. So you have the two different type of buyers. You have the first-time car buyer electric car buyer thinking about getting electric car. Range is a real consideration. And then you have the experienced car buyer that maybe's had an electric vehicle before, and they're looking at things that they know a lot about Tesla. They're looking at supercharger network and how having that is such an advantage, and that might sway them to go for Tesla. And I also think the fact that the Model Y is coming out next year, there might be a lot of people that would have gone for the iPace, but say, you know what, the Y is kind of the same vehicle. It's going to cost less. It's going to go further, and I'm going to be able to have this fantastic charging network. And they're holding off for the Y. I think that's part of the issue. I don't think there's one reason. I think all these things are adding up. The fact that the Jaguar's a niche brand, they don't have a lot of dealers. Jaguar hasn't been advertising the car. I bet a lot of the dealerships don't really thoroughly understand how to sell it. We've seen this with all the manufacturers. When they get their first electric car, the salespeople are kind of looking at each other saying, what do we do with this? How do I convince somebody that this is better than getting an E-Pace or an F-Pace, which costs less, and they know how to fuel it? Once a week, they go to a gas station, they put their $50 in the tank, and they don't have to worry about it. This car here, now I've got to explain to the people how you plug it in, how long the charge lasts, what happens if I run out. So I honestly don't know how well of a job Jaguar's doing at their dealerships, but I think that's probably the fact that the car is only selling 220 a month across the country. I bet that they're not doing a great job at the dealership. So all these things add up to, conspiring against iPace sales.
Well, so my opinion on this is this. First of all, I think it's a beautiful car, and I think a lot of people agree. As a matter of fact, it won a bunch of design awards. I think you were at that event. It was the New York Auto Show, I believe. Which I agree. I think it's one of the most beautiful SUVs out there. It is a Jaguar, so it is a legacy manufacturer, which is actually a plus to a lot of people, especially kind of old school kind of folks. I used to own a Jaguar as well, so to me that's a huge thing. Secondly, it does have over 200-mile range, which to me is good enough for pretty much any electric car nowadays. It can charge at Electrify America, by the way. Correct me if I'm wrong. It has a CCS port, right?
Yes, it has CCS. But it when they first launched, it was limited to only about 80 kilowatts. I think now that they have a software update where it can take 100 kilowatts. Yeah. But that's still, not bad, but should be 150, like many of the new cars that are coming out now. I think Jaguar has said in the future they're going to be able to do updates to increase the charging speed, but it kind of would have been nice if it rolled off the assembly line on day one with at least 125 kilowatt DC fast charge.
It would be, but 80 kilowatt is kind of it's still in the same ballpark as Tesla's, especially because of superchargers. The second version have been sharing stalls, and therefore it was very inconsistent. So to me, it was pretty much on par with Electrify America now, kind of really expanding. I know we covered it in the last video that it's not perfect yet, but it's definitely coming there, and especially if you're leasing this for 3-4 years or so. You'll definitely be caught up very soon. On top of that, the discounts, there are a lot of people reporting that, you can get to up to $60,000 after the incentives and discounts on this car. They have a
But I think
great.
that's only recently. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I think that's only recently. Now that the inventory is really built up, are they starting to really chop discounts? I mean, honestly, for what we're hearing, that you could pick up one after the federal tax credit for under 60,000. This is a great deal on that car. If you're out there in the market now cross shopping EVs, go talk to your local Jaguar dealership, see what they could do. I hear that Jaguar of North America is doing like a $7,000 manufacturer rebate, and then the dealership is whacking 5 or 6 or 7,000 off. So now it's 15,000 out the door, and then you get your $7,500 tax credit. So it's over 20,000 off a new IPace. That is a great deal on a pretty damn good electric car.
Yeah, and Electrify America expanding more and more is actually adding value to it. And I do believe, and they've had this deal for a while, I believe it's like 0% APR on their leases or something very close to that. So if you're leasing it, and not only 7,500% tax credit gets built into it, and you don't have to wait for your tax returns. On top of that, it's a really, really good lease deal. So I got to be honest with you, as I was preparing for the story, and we started talking about it, I think yesterday. I'm actually thinking about maybe giving this a shot, because this is I like this car. And I have never driven it, but you saying it's a great drive as well.
Listen, go drive one. Alex, it's an $80,000 EV. It starts off at 70, 69, I think 850. But of course, you're going to throw some options on it. The larger wheels look great. Some of the interior options. A nicely appointed iPace is 80 grand, and you can get an $80,000 car for $60,000. I mean, that doesn't happen often. And you're in the market right now. You're crazy if you don't go take a look and see what you could do on one of these, because it's a beautiful car. It drives well, and the deals are just fantastic right now.
I have to say that I did reach out to Jaguar once again. They have not been very good with me, and I've heard quite a few other people as far as the communication, as far as offering drives and just helping us promote it, right? So today I actually sent out a bunch of other emails saying, hey guys, I'm begging you, can I please try to, promote this to my community? Because I think that everyone's very open to it. I literally just got an email back. I haven't read it yet, from one of their communication people. So I'm hoping it's going to be some good news, because I'm telling you, this car's growing to me again, and with this incentives is a great deal. I am definitely going to go and take a look at it. But I understand. Okay, I get your point. The dealerships don't know what to do with it. There's not that many dealerships. But you mentioned that they don't advertise this car much. I mean, they don't advertise on TV. They don't advertise with influencers. I haven't seen too many influencers get this car except for like fully charged. I don't see them doing pre-roll on YouTube or Google ads, or they're like, everyone's talking about iPace in one way or another except for Jaguar. Why do you think that is? Because they just told us that they're going to actually electrify the XJ, the next generation. They just discontinued it, but they're saying it's coming back electrified. So it look electrified, and they're putting money into the factory in England right now. Like, the deal just got approved. Mm-hmm. So are they or are they not behind this damn thing?
Well, I think they're behind it as much as they can be. I mean, this goes back to the fact that what we spoke to earlier. Jaguar's a small brand. They don't have a huge ad budget. They're not Mercedes, where they can, spend a couple $100 million on advertising. They've got to spend their money wisely, and they've got to pick their spots. So, the iPace is one of their, slower selling, lower volume cars. I don't know if they have the money to really get behind it and do, a big time ad campaign. You notice the only thing I really see Jaguar advertising on TV is the F-Pace and the E-Pace, their SUVs. And those are their bread and butter right now. And I don't know if there's any money left over in the budget, to be honest with you. Don't underestimate how small Jaguar is. They're a very small company. I visited their headquarters over in Coventry, and honestly, it's small. And that's their main worldwide headquarters, and it's not a big building. They're a small niche brand, Jaguar.
Wow. I mean, yeah, no, granted. I don't know. I guess I'm a little frustrated now that I'm kind of finding out what's been happening. Now that there's been some time since their launch and everything. I just, yeah. So, but I guess, what do they have to do? Because they can't be doing this for too long, right? They either have to get behind it and put some advertising dollars into it and start selling them, or they're not. And as a matter of fact, they're in some trouble also in terms of their revenues and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
I think a couple of weeks ago I put you in a chair of BMW CEO. So today we're going to do it with Jaguar. Let's say tomorrow you wake up, and if you do, by the way, we got to make a movie about this. But let's say tomorrow you wake up as a CEO of Jaguar. What are the top three things you're gonna do differently in the next year or so to kind of turn the ship around?
Well, number one, above all, for the U.S. at least, I'm going to hire Tom Moloughney to help train their dealers to sell more iPaces.
Wow.
As well, that's
you've given yourself a race in the first 5 minutes already. Jesus, great.
One of the things I do full time is train dealers how to be better prepared to sell electric cars. I do this with Plug in America through a program that we created called PlugStar. So, number one, I am certain that if Jaguar were to hire our services, we would go in and really set the dealers up for success. And it's not just training the salespeople. It's really getting in there, understanding what's working, what's not working at the dealership, explaining them how to promote the cars, how to position the cars on the lot, how to have them parked with charging stations, with the hood up, with a connector in the charge port so people ask questions, and also things like participating in local ride and drives. It's a proven fact that if people drive electric cars, if they get involved, they get in the car and they drive it, they buy them. And we call it butts in seats. You got to get people sitting in these cars and driving them, and then they buy them. I would love to have Jaguar do something like where they give away some kind of free giveaway if you test drive an iPace. I don't know what it could be. They could, buy something for the dealers like a Jaguar leather computer case or something, and come to any of your local Jaguar dealers and test drive an iPace and get a free whatever, a attaché case or something, some giveaway. You'd be surprised how many people go to the dealerships if they're going to get something that's worth $20 for free.
Absolutely.
Just get them in this car, make them drive it, and people will like it if they're in it and driving it. I just think, many of the dealerships have these iPaces parked in the back of the parking lot. They're blocked in by 4 or 5, E-Paces or F-Paces. They're not charged. They're not sitting in the showroom. And, people come in and the salespeople don't even attempt to say, hey, we have an electric car now and it rocks. You want to go for a drive? Just, I think out of curiosity, a lot of the people that are coming into a Jaguar dealership, maybe for a totally different vehicle, would just take it for a test drive. And some of them would end up buying the car if they did. So, that's number one. And that's something that you don't need a huge budget to do. Get the dealers on board, prepare the dealers, get an iPace. Every Jaguar dealership should have an iPace in their loaner fleet. So when somebody comes in with their gas Jaguar for service, they get the keys to a fully charged iPace to take for the day while their car's being serviced. Those people are going to come back to the dealership and say, holy crap, that car is awesome. How much does it cost? What are the leasing terms? So, those are a couple things that they could really do very quickly and without a tremendous expense. And I think it would make a huge difference in their sales, Alex.
Well, I mean, I'm a little disappointed. And one of the things you would not be doing is sponsoring E4 Electric as a Jaguar, but fine. I'm assuming it's number four. I just can only assume that. But well, what about advertisement? Would you try to advertise? And if so, granted the Jaguar audience is a little bit older and old school, would you go with a traditional television, radio, and print maybe, or would you go more with the online advertising, maybe some social media influencers and so forth?
Yeah, I just don't think Jaguar of North America has the budget to go in for a big TV splash. I really don't.
Well, if you're the
So that
CEO,
defaults to
you
what
can
you're
find
talking
it.
about: some online advertising, some really clever YouTube videos, things like that they can produce without a huge budget, get them out there. Hopefully one or two of them go viral. Some just clever, fun ideas. And then even reach out to people like you who are influencers, electric vehicle influencers, and seeing what they could maybe do with you to get the word out. Be a sponsor or something like that. I mean, there's a lot that they can do, but a lot of these entrenched OEMs are still stuck in old school advertising, and they're just now starting to warm up to new ideas. And with the electric cars, they're different, and they're catering to a different market. A lot of these people are going to the internet to learn about electric cars, and they're not learning about them from Car and Driver and Road and Track magazine, or even television commercials. So go to where the people that are searching for electric car information are, and advertise your product there.
Well, I gotta tell you, I'm frustrated with this. I'm frustrated because I'm afraid that if a car like this is not selling, despite of all of this little efforts from Jaguar, how is this going to go in the next year? I mean, we've already talked about Kia and Hyundai, and we've beat that issue to death, where those cars are not really selling for maybe different reasons. I'm just saying I'm concerned. So maybe one of my last questions to you is, given what we're talking about today with the Jaguar sales, given what we've talked about with Kia and Hyundai sales, even though I understand it's a battery constraint, are you worried about the adoption of electric cars at this point?
I'm not. Tesla is taking such a big bite out of the electric car Apple right now that they're making all the other car companies kind of scratch their head and say, well, what do we have to do to sell our electric cars? And there's a lot of reasons why Tesla's doing that. A lot of these cars that are coming out are good cars, but Tesla has done so many things so well, and their name is just synonymous with electric cars now. It's hard for the existing OEMs to get past that hurdle, and especially when their dealer networks don't understand the vehicles and aren't really trying to sell them. As I mentioned earlier, this is happening with all of the existing OEMs. The sales force, they understand their internal combustion engine cars. They know how to sell them. It's what they've been doing forever. They can answer pretty much any question somebody has about engine life, oil changes, maintenance, all that stuff. But when somebody comes in and starts asking them about, well, how long do these batteries last? And what happens if I need a new battery? And where do I plug it in if I'm on a road trip? And, how does the cold weather affect the battery? How does the hot weather affect the battery? The salespeople they're just not ready to answer these questions. And that makes people apprehensive about buying the car. When somebody goes to a Tesla store, they get all their answers. They get all their questions answered. There's no question whether or not the people there can answer their question. Now, they might not give you the right answer. I actually got a couple wrong answers when I went to a Tesla store. But they're at least answering me. When you ask them a question, they don't stare across the table with a blank stare or say, I'm going to have to ask my manager. If that happens, the sale's dead. If the salesperson can't answer the questions and they're like, well, let me look it up online, or let me ask my manager, they're not giving confidence to the customer that dealership is prepared to sell and service this car. So I think the dealerships are still a big point of contention. with the existing OEMs and why their sales are down.
Well, that's unfortunate. As a matter of fact, this is something that we might talk about in the future in terms of what we can do in terms of turning that around, because that is something that they can't get away unfortunately from. So, all right, listen. You made me feel a little bit better, I have to say, but
before we go, I'm going to make you feel bad. I have one last nugget to add.
Great, sure.
So, what happened in July that hasn't happened for 37 months?
With
37 continuous months.
With
electric cars.
I don't know.
So in July of 2019, it was the first month after 36 consecutive months of year-over-year monthly improvement in electric vehicle sales. So for the last 36 months, the EV sales from whatever month was greater than the EV sales from that month of the previous year. So this past month of July broke a string since I think the middle of 2016, when it was the first month where we didn't sell more EVs than July of 2018, the year before. So is this a blip or is this a trend? We won't know for a couple more months, but it's a little disappointing because we've had this 3 years plus of EV sales growth, and now we stumbled a little bit. We sold, I think, 3,200 less cars in July of 2019 than we sold in July of 2018.
I did not realize that. As a matter of fact, so you're telling me that in July of this year, last month, there were less sales in the United States, electric car sales, than in July of a previous year, where Model 3 weren't even like on the radar, really. They weren't even selling that much.
It was ramping up.
Yeah, but right now they're in the mass production. Now they're making them at much higher pace.
Right. But a lot of the Model 3s now are going out of the country. Last year, they were all staying here.
That could be
so it, while production is up for the Model 3s, U.S. sales is not up.
Yeah.
Compared to this time last year.
That's something to think about it, but that's not making my weekend any better, Tom. So yes,
I told you I had to give you a little bad news.
Great. I appreciate it. But all right, well, we keep our eye on it. We'll see how the next month goes. Me and you usually review these numbers in our videos, so hopefully we have better news next month. Before we go, of course, tell us where everybody can find you, because you always have amazing insight. If this video is not a great sample of that, I know what is. But where can people find you on a daily basis?
Okay, so I'm a staff writer for InsideEVs, and you could read my columns there. I don't post every day, but a couple times a week. And all the other writers there are fantastic. Of course, we're responsible for the EV monthly scorecard that pretty much every automotive news site uses, the InsideEV's reporting of EV sales in the US. We have all the historical data there, so you can go back and see when we sold more, when we sold less for each individual car. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Tom Moloughney, at Tom Moloughney.
Yeah, and that's right. Below, right?
Yeah, sure, right there, below me.
But also, it's in the description of this video. All right, Tom. Thanks for hanging out with me once again. I will see you next week.
See you then, Alex.
All right, guys. This is something that I gotta tell you. I got a little upset about doing research about this, and I don't think Tom helped. But in terms of my blood pressure, but he definitely helped to kind of shine some light on this. Like I said, I reached out to Jaguar, and they just got replied from them. So I'll let you know if anything comes out of that. I'm gonna go and see if leasing a Jaguar I-Pace right now actually makes sense. Just like Tom said, this is a great deal that they're having right now all around. So I'm going to check that out. Don't forget to participate in our program called Feed a YouTuber. You can provide shelter, water, and video equipment to this guy right here, only for $5 a month. And also, of course, you get to watch a lot of these videos live. And thank you to one of my newer Patreons, John. Thank you so much for joining my Patreon community. I welcome you, and I hope to see you when we're doing these videos live. And of course, before I forget, don't forget to get on our VIP list. That one is actually absolutely free. We get a free bonus story every Saturday in your inbox. We have a great writer, AJ, who basically whatever story doesn't fit into our YouTube channel or even e4electric.com website, we just send it out to you for free into your inbox. So don't forget to sign up at e4electric.com/VIP. All right, looking forward to your comments. Other than that, see you next time, and remember to stay charged.